So work with me here. Pretend you're a guy who really likes Battle for Bikini Bottom. And you played the other 3D SpongeBob platformers and you thought they were pretty swell. Even Truth or Squared. So you see this game on store shelves called SpongeBob Plankton's Robotic Revenge. And you're like, oh my god, when was there a new SpongeBob game? It's been 4 years. And you look at the front of the case and it looks promising. And you look at the back of the case and it looks like an adventure game, you know. And it says it's 4-player co-op. So how could this possibly go wrong? Then you start playing the game and okay, it's a weird overhead perspective 4-player shooter thing. Not a dual joystick shooter, mind you, because all of your weapons lock on to the nearest enemy. The only other game that's kind of like this that comes to mind is All for One, and All for One is pretty great. And the SpongeBob universe is really colorful and has a lot of interesting locations and characters. I mean, Battle for Bikini Bottom managed to turn those colorful and interesting locations and characters into a really fun 3D platformer. And the genre benefited from it. It was one of the best 3D platformers of its generation. And I mean, there's no way you can't make SpongeBob's colorful cast of characters and locations work for a shoot or two. It might be a little bit harder. But the set pieces alone would make it pretty interesting, right? Do you see anything interesting about what's happening on screen right now? This game has some of the most dull, lifeless, humorless locations in anything I've ever played. It just lacks any of the spirit of the SpongeBob license. Just at all. The connections to SpongeBob are so loose that they may as well not even be there. Yeah, the character models are SpongeBob, and they have voice clips from the actual voice actors. But the weapons are really generic in function. They're themed after food. But, I mean, only some of them make sense. Like, the fuck is the pie launcher for? I get the tartar sauce gun, I get the condiment cannon, but how does the pie launcher fit into SpongeBob's universe, and why? If you're going to make a licensed game, you have to make the license count for something. This game just staunchly refuses to do that. Like, you could replace the character models, and this could easily just be a really generic overhead shooter. The game design works, you know? There's nothing super bad about it. It's okay. But nothing would be lost if SpongeBob were removed. If you remove SpongeBob from Battle for Bikini Bottom, or, you know, the movie game or Truth or Square, you would lose a lot. Because so much of the fun comes from the SpongeBob part of the equation. Even in Truth or Square. In this game, just, you remove SpongeBob and it's exactly the same. The enjoyment is not hindered or enhanced by SpongeBob. Alright, so let's forget that the game violated the idea of what a licensed game would even be for in the first place. Let's just forget about that. Let's pretend this isn't a SpongeBob game and this is just Robot Destruction or something. Some generic name. It's a very generic game. The game design is generic. It's, there's nothing remarkable here. The weapon types actually fail at being weapon types, really? They all shoot in different ways, but they're pretty much indistinguishable. They all lock on to the nearest enemy, and they may have different damage output, but it's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell. Pretty much any of them will get the job done. You can upgrade them and stuff, and they try to mimic weapon types, like the tartar sauce gun is obviously the laser gun, and the bubble blaster is the shotgun, and the pie launcher is the grenade launcher, but they all do the exact same thing in spite of them firing differently. Like the shotgun, the bubble blaster, it pretty much has infinite range. What's the point of it being a shotgun? You could make an argument that the tartar sauce gun is the best one because it locks onto the enemies ceaselessly, and it hits them 100% of the time, no matter what. And you could make an argument that the pie launcher is the best gun for groups of enemies because it has massive splash damage. But that's entirely optional. If you played with any of the guns throughout the whole game, you really wouldn't notice a difference, I think. And I've actually beaten this game 4 separate times, this being the 4th time. Yeah. This game's like 2 hours and 10 minutes long. And I keep giving it a new chance, because I want to believe that there's something here I missed, or that the game isn't as painfully generic as I remember it being. You know this set piece we're fighting on right now? It looks really terrible still. It's really generic. You know the outside of the Krusty Krab doesn't look anything like this? It doesn't look anything like this. But at least that's the Krusty Krab over there, right? That's unmistakably the Krusty Krab. That's pretty much the only thing that's recognizably purely SpongeBob aside from the character models in the game. All of the environments, everything, really generic. Really hard to see the SpongeBob influence. This is the only set piece, if you want to call them set pieces, where it's unmistakably SpongeBob. And it's still kind of screwed up. What are you for, Plankton's Robotic Revenge? What is your purpose? Is it to bore people to death? I mean, you can see the game design here. It's pretty clear. It's pretty plain. Not much to say about it. There are different enemy types, and the challenge comes from all of them firing at you at the same time in different ways. It's decent game design. Not outstanding. Nothing to write home about. You know, very average, very generic. Very average. Very generic. Also very average. For the love of my sanity, give me something interesting to talk about. Stop doing this to me. So I guess that's Plankton's Robotic Revenge. This is the final boss, by the way.